Kay'Ron Lynch-Adams, Nathan Carter. Yes, it's going to be a 50-50-ish split the rest of the season, but is someone already starting to pull ahead? Let's go.
You are Locked On Spartans, your daily podcast on the Michigan State Spartans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode of Locked On Spartans is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege. That's all one word, Locked On College, for $20 off your first purchase. Spartan friends, Spartan family, Locked On Spartans listeners, thank you all so much for tuning in to Locked On Spartans, your team in green and white. I'm sorry, your 3-0 team in green and white 5 days a week. That's right, Chase. We got to cherish these moments. Whoa, we've come a long way since last year. Hey, you know what? Let's keep rolling. If you ever want to reach out, lockedonspartans@gmail.com is the place to find us with any questions, comments, concerns. You have any locks for betting? My God, based on last week, you guys know I could use some of those. But anyway, lockedonspartans@gmail.com is the way to go. We're going to kick things off here with Chase Glasser. That's right, back for his weekly appearance. He just cannot say no to hopping up on the show. So thank you very much, Chase. But we're going to kick off the conversation with a little bit of Nathan Carter, Kay'Ron Lynch-Adams talk. And it was discussed after the preview A&M game. Kay'Ron Lynch-Adams, he gets 15 carries. Nathan Carter, he gets 8. Jonathan Smith was asked, hey, is this a sign of more things to come? And he said, no, it was just, kind of that's how the plays worked. We have different plays for each of these guys. I think that's true, and I think it will continue to be this 50-50-ish split the rest of the season. But let's have the conversation, Chase. But before doing that, let's set the table with some stats for both of these guys right now. 3 games into the season, obviously. Kay'Ron Lynch-Adams, 210 yards on 34 carries. That is a smooth 6.2 yards per carry. Nathan Carter, also a solid start to his season. 198 yards on 38 carries. That is good for 5.2 yards per carry. Now we're going to dig deeper. Yards after contact. Kay'Ron Lynch-Adams has 132 yards after contact, 3.88 yards per carry after contact. That is 30th best in the nation for running backs that have at least 30 carries. Nathan Carter, 122 yards overall, 3.2 yards after contact. That is good for 50th. I know it's a lot of numbers and I'm belching out at everyone, but I think the missed tackles is important here. And speaking of missed tackles forced, Kay'Ron Lynch-Adams has forced 18 missed tackles already in just 3 games. That is 9th best in the country, minimum 30 carries. And then Nathan Carter, also 6 forced missed tackles. So I say the missed tackle thing and yards after contact because, well, Chase, these guys get contacted pretty early here, especially between the tackles. But hey, you know what? Still solid starts to seasons from both of those. Again, I'll reiterate, I'm not trying to, cause a controversy or say one of these guys needs to be shipped out of East Lansing permanently. It will be a consistent split. Yeah. But if you had to give like a 55-45 split to anyone, does it look like Kay'Ron Lynch-Adams is actually like the better of the two moving forward here?
Yeah. I mean, I hate to, just totally diffuse the entire conversation. It does feel like a little bit of a distinction without a difference, just because I think it's lucky in that they have 2 good backs. And if you look at it, I mean, the yards, if both your running backs are over 5 yards a carry, that's pretty good. Especially if they're in that like kind of 6 yards a carry, that's pretty darn good. And the yards after contact, similar. Where you really see the differentiation is the missed tackles. And I think that you can see, Kay'Ron Lynch-Adams has maybe a little bit more top end speed, and I think certainly a little bit more wiggle. So I think in kind of the outside zone where a lot of times you just have to dodge somebody, and there's going to be someone who's partially blocked, partially not, and they're going to make a run at you, and you just need to kind of force that miss by yourself. Kay'Ron Lynch might be a little bit better of a pick there, and then Nathan Carter maybe a little bit more if you're going between the tackles and we saw Carter, he's gotten some receiving chops too. So I think that it's a good position for State to be in, where I think this is a pretty good running back room. And I think they're both pretty good players and they're both able to contribute. And I don't think, and this is good, where I don't think there's so much of a difference between them that you can't call the same plays with both. Yes, I think Kay'Ron Lynch is going to be a better fit for running outside zone. Doesn't mean that Nathan Carter can't. He's done well with that. That kind of, they did a new thing on Saturday, maybe not new, but they featured it more than they did before, where it almost looked like power, where you have a tackle down block and then you have a guard pull and that offset tight end pull around, and it's a pitch, and they ran it to the short side of the field a lot. Kay'Ron Lynch-Adams might be able to just get upfield a little bit faster, but they ran it with both, and it was effective with both. And then if you're going between the tackles, maybe you want a little bit more Nate Carter if you're just in a 3rd and 1 and you're trying to run somebody over. But also we've seen Kay'Ron Lynch-Adams able to kind of squeeze through a really small hole between the tackles running inside zone. And I think they can both be effective. So I think that rather than one needs to get a lot more snaps than the other or anything like that, I just think the dichotomy is that you have 2 pretty good players who you can use a lot of versatile plays. You don't have a tell when one's in the game. If one's in the game, it's not okay. Nothing's going between the tackles and it's all going outside. You don't have that. I think both can run every play in the playbook effectively, and that's a good place to be in.
That's what I found was interesting with Jonathan Smith's answer, not to call him an outright liar, but he said like, oh, well, it's just different plays for different guys. Like they seem to run the same amount of inside and outside, but whatever, you know what, like just to keep it with the run conversation though. And, oftentimes, if not always, when you're on this show, like you are the adult in the room, I can be a little bit of a worrier. And I will admit, I'm probably just very jaded from last season, how, little the ground game was able to do. But one of my takeaways out of the Prairie View A&M game was, wow, between the tackles, it still didn't look fantastic, especially against an FCS school of that level. I believe it was 3.7 yards per carry on runs inside the tackles, which, okay, fine. Like 3.7 yards is fine if you're playing Ohio State or Oregon or Iowa. But, man, Prairie View A&M, I would like that number to be above 5. A lot of contact in the backfield, similar to what we saw against FAU. Everyone knows the stat by now if you've listened to the show. Nathan Carter, that opening night, 19 carries, 11 times hit at or behind the line of scrimmage. So it's worry on my end, but I think justified. But maybe you could break test me here. Am I overblowing it? Like, is the running game between the tackles that big of a concern, or is it just like a minor blip on the radar in your opinion, Chase?
I mean, I think that this is year 1 of a coach who's taking over a team that's not super deep.
Week by week that changes too. Yeah, you're right.
And also you're talking about an offensive line that lost a starting guard and then lost the backup of that guard. Yeah. So even before that, I thought that running between the tackles is going to be kind of a struggle this year. And there's been nothing that I've seen to dissuade me from that. However, it's a tough thing to explain, but it's like teams are still going to play straight up. People are not going to surrender the A and B gaps and line everybody up outside. It's not how you play football. People don't do that. It's like there was a study where play action was identically similar in effectiveness when the quarterback just faked the handoff with nobody in the backfield.
Gotcha. Okay.
You know what I mean? It's like a lot of times where if you're a linebacker, your key is the head and shoulders of the guard. If it's shooting out in a run block, you're going downhill. If it comes up in a pass block, you're getting into a drop. It's like, those keys are still going to be there, and Michigan State is still absolutely going to run between the tackles because you have to do it, because you have to have things off of it. Now, I don't think it's going to be overly effective. I think as the year goes on, you can get a little bit more, people can grow. That's the nice thing about college sports. People are allowed to improve and get better, and lines can gel. And that's one of the things that make college sports so great, is that the team that you see in week 1, for better or for worse, is not going to be the team you see in week 8. So I think it can improve marginally, but I do think it's going to be a struggle. I also think you can see that Michigan State is aware of that, and they tried to do some stuff.
Yes.
Where they had like the quarterback under center. You're using that tight end as kind of a fullback, and you have just 7 yards deep behind the running back, behind the quarterback, the running back, just good old fashioned. They really try to cave in one side of the line, isolate a defensive end or a linebacker, whoever that overhang player is, blast him out with the tight end, either on kind of a split zone type motion or just using him literally as a fullback and creating an artificial gap there. So it's like we're kind of technically going to run outside the tackles, but it all looks like inside run. And that was effective. Now it was effective against an FCS team. They used that a lot on 2nd and 3, 3rd and 2. But it was effective nonetheless, and you want to see it blocked well, and it was. So you might get a point where, okay, people start losing individual battles. Okay, you can deal with that. But right now it looks like they have maybe a little bit of a workaround there. And also there's stuff that you can do in play action. There's stuff that you can do with that tight end going into the flat that plays off of that. So that's kind of another dynamic of the offense that you saw. We talked a little bit before about that wrap pull, the pitch. There's going to be stuff that they could do with that. I would not be surprised if you see a running back throw a pass out of that.
Hey, no, let's go.
You know what I mean? So it's like
stay tuned this Saturday. That's right.
There are things that you can do coming out of that to just kind of supplement that inside run game. There's a couple things where just kind of long handoff. you're getting a pass for 3 yards, hoping somebody can fall forward for 5. They did that with Missouri a couple times, where it's like the New England Patriots did that for a long time, where it's, listen, we're going to run between the tackles just enough to keep people honest, and we're going to supplement that inside run game with a lot of swing passes and stuff like that to stretch the field laterally. So there's workarounds there, and I think that it'll be a little bit of a struggle, but I think ultimately the running game will continue to be effective through kind of the sum of its parts.
And we're going to switch sides of the field here in a hot second. We're going to talk Charles Brantley. He's the MVP for a lot of people so far on the defensive side of the ball. Does Chase agree, or who is in second place right now if he is the outright MVP? But first, you need to talk your ears off about FanDuel Sportsbook, America's #1 sportsbook. You already know it. They are hooking it up all football season, whether it's NFL, college, with their great lines, their props, their futures, their same game parlays. You know I'm going to have a few of those for this upcoming Saturday's game, which, by the way, Michigan State now 6.5-point underdogs. That number keeps floating between 7.5 and 6.5. So, hey, you know what? Go ahead, fancy a wager over at FanDuel. But it's not just the bets and the props that they are settling you with this football season. No. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with the YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you cancel at any time. Just visit FanDuel.com to download America's #1 sportsbook. Again, FanDuel.com. It is America's #1 sportsbook. And hey, you know what? Let's talk America's #1 ticketing app, Gametime. Stay in the game with Gametime, and man, guys, we've been talking about Gametime for how long now on this show. And I will be talking about it long after I do this show, because it is just so simple, guys. It is 2 taps on your phone when you buy tickets. It's not like, okay, click, and oh my God, at the very end, there's surprise fees that just jumped out of nowhere. No. It is up front. They tell you what the ticket's going to cost, and boop, sent straight to your phone. You're not going to be standing outside of the stadium wondering, oh my God, I have no service here. How are my tickets going to come? Guys, it is just so simple. Send straight to your phone. They got flash deals throughout the week that can help save you money in great sections. Last-minute ticket deals, which I love. The procrastinator in my life loves that. As you're walking up to the stadium, see what the last-minute ticket deals are. Or, hey, take advantage and save right off the bat. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Just download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? It's Gametime. And what time is it right now? That's right. It is back to Chase Glasser time of Spartans Illustrated. And defensive side of the ball here. Look, we talked long after that game against Prairie View that, you know, Chuck Brantley is the story of the season on the defensive side of the ball for more than just his sweet 100-plus yard pick six. Like, that was just such an awesome moment. But, man, his journey from, you know, great freshman moment, interception against Michigan, to, okay, you know, a lot of injuries, a lot of up and down play. He's kind of getting recruited over in the transfer portal. But, my goodness gracious, like, Pro Football Focus has him as the best defensive player. My eyeballs have him as the best defensive player. He has 2 interceptions, 3 pass breakups. He's only allowing 27% completion percentage. Like, he seems going away the defensive MVP right now. So, Chase, I guess you take this question the way you want. Is he the defensive MVP in your eyeballs? And if he is, like, who else is jumping out at you on defense here?
Yeah, I mean, he's played really well, and you can see he's definitely grown, and I think the scheme works for him well, and he's certainly played really, really well there, especially as there's been some injuries in the defensive backfield. They're going to lean on him more and more to really kind of lock up somebody. So he's definitely played really well. Somebody else that I would point to that I've been watching all year that really jumped off the field on watching the first game and has continued since then is Khris Bogle, playing defensive end. He's been really, really good. And every week I say, like, oh, this is a really good rep. This is a really good series. Let's see how he does against better competition. And I don't think Boston College necessarily has a great offensive line, and he was really good against Maryland and definitely the most kind of watched Power 4 matchup of the season so far. So I'm interested to see how that looks as he goes forward, but he's been excellent. His run defense has been really good. He's displayed a variety of pass rush moves. Just anytime that you can get into the backfield and mess things up, I thought he's been really, really effective there. And also I think there's times where other people have sacks. So there was a play in this game where Ken Talley had a big sack in the first half, but it was because Bogle gets across the tackle's face. forces the running back to come up and pass pro and allows Tally to loop behind him to get to the quarterback and clean that up. So he has just really made this defensive line, made everybody play better. And I think a lot of it is reflected in the stat sheet, but I'd not be surprised if a lot of it isn't, but he makes this defense a lot better. He's been good defending the edge when people have tried to option him, when they've tried to put him in positions of conflict. And he's just been very impressive to me. So he's definitely going to be somebody that I continue to watch throughout the year, just because I thought that he's played extremely well. And he's somebody that really helps this defensive line go.
I'm glad you brought up Ken Talley too, because I think he's, been an under the radar guy,
so
definitely. To speak. Great week
Mm-hmm.
one game, obviously great against Prairie View A&M too, but he's kind of taken over the role that I thought Quindarius Dunnigan would have more of. And right now, Quindarius Dunnigan on the season, 30 snaps. I mean, and then, Ken Talley's almost doubled it with 58 snaps, and he's been, I'd say, pretty good in those games. I mean, granted, just like you kind of mentioned and that we've been mentioning kind of the whole season, haven't played the most stout offensive lines so far this season. I mean, everyone knows the story. You're probably going to be sick of me saying this again. Florida Atlantic breaking in 4 new offensive linemen to start the season. Maryland, 5 new starters, and Prairie View A&M is Prairie View A&M. So, but hey, with all that aside, still a really strong start to the season for him. So, yeah, it's a Chuck Brantley show, but definitely no shortage of candidates for silver medalist on this defense. Jordan Turner, too. I think, really strong so far. Do you think he's sticking out the most out of the linebacking core for you? Is there anyone else out of the linebackers?
Well. He's played very well, and I think he's been used in a variety of ways. I think
he has,
he's a very instinctive blitzer. So he's been used in that regard a lot. He's had some good coverage events, and he puts himself, I feel like most times when you're watching him, he puts himself in the right gap. And so much of being a linebacker is just being in the right place, where if you get in the right gap and you just get ejected by a guard or you get run over by a running back, that's not good, but these things happen. If you delete yourself from the play by having bad eye discipline, by going to the wrong gaps, by just playing outside of your responsibility, that's where it turns from, okay, we gave up a 4-yard gain, we're going back to the huddle, we're getting back and we're trying to get them next play, to we just give up a 25-yard chunk and now we're in trouble. You know what I mean? So I think that having that kind of headiness has been really, really valuable, especially when he's been on the field, whether it's with Jordan Hall, who's I think continued to grow, or Cal Halliday, who is generally going to be in the right place at the right time. So it's been, I think, a good spot. The linebackers have definitely taken a step forward. And I think Rossi's coaching them, or involved in their coaching personally. And you can tell they're a lot more disciplined than they were last year. They're in the right place more. And I also think the defense puts a little bit less on them, while also asking them to do a variety of things in a way that I think is really positive. So it's the linebacking spot's definitely been good.
Just as many of us, predicted in the offseason too. Like that is a unit that came in with a lot of experience, but you add guys like Wayne Matthews, Jordan Turner in the transfer portal, and it's like, okay, this is going to be your backbone of the defense. And so far, it has been, save for the surprise of Charles Brantley here. So good on him. Look, we're going to flip the page here, because this is actually a conversation topic we're going to carry on from yesterday with Connor Muldowney. I said, what's the number one thing you still want to learn about this team? And my answer kind of hit his answer. We'll reiterate those and pick Chase's brain in a hot second. But first, I'm so sorry I got to do this again. Got to talk to people's ears off about ROY. That is Roy, baby. That's right. We're going to change the college NIL landscape here. Spartan fans, have you heard about Roy? It stands for Return on You, and it's a new platform that lets you, the fans, get involved in NIL like never before by making contributions directly to your favorite athletes. By supporting players directly, you can help shape rosters, retain talent, and keep your favorite athletes out of the transfer portal. As you know, NIL has changed the game for athletes. Roy changes the NIL game for fans. So how it works, you know what? Hey, let's say your favorite player has a great game this Saturday. Go on Roy, deposit whatever amount that you want into their account. But hey, they could only use that account if they don't enter the transfer portal in the offseason. That's right. So when we say keep out of the transfer portal, no, we're serious. You actually have a hand in doing so. Roy allows fans to directly back their favorite college athletes. With Roy, fans can play the key role in shaping the future of their favorite teams, while athletes maximize their name, image, and likeness potential. Download Roy for iOS or Android and enter referral code LOCKEDON, and you'll automatically be entered into a sweepstakes to win $5,000 cash. Visit joinroy.com. Joinroy.com for additional details. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited. Again, locked on to be entered into a $5,000 cash grand prize. Get off the sidelines and into the NIL game with Roy. Also, you want to spruce up your man cave, your kitchen, your garage, wherever you want to have a team ticker sign? We'll do it. This is the best thing that I have in my basement, in the studio, as you guys see on YouTube. But hey, let's say you're listening on the podcast. You're wondering, what's a team ticker sign? Well, think of any countdown to kickoff sign you've ever seen, except make it 500 times more cooler. You know, it's got AP ranking. It has stats. It has schedules. It has the weather forecast for the upcoming games. It only takes up 2 feet by 1.5 feet of wall space, so it could fit in a lot of places. But man, it will be the talk of your living situation wherever you throw your team ticker sign. And before you know it, guys, holidays are going to be here, so give the fan in your life, or maybe that's just you, the gift of a team ticker sign and also save big. Team Ticker is the one-of-a-kind sports sign. Go to teamticker.com and use promo code LOCKEDON to receive $50 off your team ticker purchase. I'll say that again. Head over to teamticker.com and use the promo code LOCKEDON to receive $50 off your team ticker purchase. Now let's drag him back out here. It is Chase Glasser of Spartans Illustrated, and yesterday's show, I say, you know what? 3 weeks into the season, you've already learned plenty about this team, but I still want to see how serious this run defense is. This is a conversation we even had last week, but against a solid running attack in Boston College, I'm not saying they're top 10, top 20. It is objectively solid. What do they look like, though? Because the last 3 teams they faced, not the greatest offensive line situations. Connor Muldowney, he said, what does Aiden Childs look like in his first, real actually road game where the fans care somewhat about football? No disrespect to Maryland. It's a great road win. Anytime you win on the road is great, but this conversation that me and you are having is louder than the stadium was at
lacrosse school. Lacrosse.
Not ideal for football players over there. So that was what we had of what we want to learn this upcoming weekend. Chase, what is at the top of your head for things you still want to figure out about this team?
Yeah, I mean, the run defense and I think the defensive line, just in general, we talked about the run defense last week, and you and Connor did too. And then, what we talked about last segment with, okay, this pass rush, how real is it against a real offensive line? Well, part of that is how many real offensive lines are you going to play?
That's a good point.
I mean, if we just kind of take at face value that Boston College is okay, Ohio State, got to think they're pretty good.
Yeah.
Iowa, they'll be okay. These are not the Iowa offensive lines from 2014, 2015, though.
It is surprising. Yeah.
It's different. Michigan's offensive line looks bad. I mean, and right tackle and pass pro is a disaster.
It's tough. It's tough.
So it's I mean, they're even against Oregon, it looks like they figured it out a little bit. So we'll see, but it does seem like even in some of the bigger name games, and teams that you think about, Iowa, Michigan, that's a big offensive line. Well, there might still be some work to be done. So I'm really interested in seeing what does that defensive line look like as we get into the meat of the schedule. I use the word scalable in my film rooms, probably too much, but how scalable is this success? What does it mean down the road? And to that, I think I'd also like to see, what does this offense look like? Just because I've talked about how the offense does a couple things really well. And I think that is absolutely better than doing a lot of stuff poorly. And you see a lot of offenses try to do everything and try to have the whiz bang everything and make everybody wrong and on every play and look really, really, really smart. And sometimes you can just have a couple things that are really simple, have stuff that plays off of it and execute it really, really, really well. Michigan State, I think, has that. And we've talked about it with some of the outside zone stuff that they do. And with the play action, the boot series. What I wonder is, what is the next step, and is there a next step? If there's not a next step, I think that can be fine. You're going to win, 7-ish more games, and that's okay. That's completely fine. But is there a next step? I think for Michigan State long term, we're talking multiple years. There's going to have to be a development of just a straight drop back downfield passing game. A lot of the stuff, it's just kind of, you're going to take a 3-step drop and you're going to chuck it up to whoever's going downfield. Normally Nick against FAU, it's not on, it's not happening. And it was pretty ugly. Against Maryland, it's on, it's happening. You got to have a little bit more of a complex passing game than that. Everything can't be just we're going to run a drive concept and pitch it in the hook curl or flat where somebody can turn upfield. You have to be able to threaten in the middle of the field a little bit more. Or if you're not going to do that, you have to have, I think, a diversity of a run game that I don't know if Michigan State has. And that's okay. I mean, if Michigan State had all of these things that we're talking about and was good at all of them, I mean, I think we'd both be, if Michigan State goes 8-4, we're sitting here going,
oh,
heck yeah, right? Like that is really, really good direction. I think we're expecting them to be 7-5. I'd say about 7-5 plus or minus on that would not shock me at all. And it's okay if they were good at everything, we wouldn't have stuff to talk about.
Sure, yeah.
I think I want to see a little bit more development of the downfield passing game, and you saw that in this game. You saw some drive concepts, you saw some plays off of some of the dagger stuff that they run, which are different types of pass concepts, and that's really good. But it was also pretty sparing, and it was against a really bad team that played in the parking lot the entire game, because they didn't want to get hit for 80-yard touchdowns all the time.
Of course,
which they still did. So you want to see kind of, okay, what does this look like? And we saw with Iowa, and I'm not comparing like in any way except for just kind of the scheme, because State just straight up has better players on offense than Iowa did. And like some of the Iowa teams that have made Big Ten title games recently, it's like they pretty much just ran a bunch of boot stuff and a bunch of outside zone, because that was a little more inside zone, but they ran zone stuff on the ground in boot stuff because that was the only stuff that they could do. And you saw it have success for a half, maybe a couple halves, and then you just kind of get sit on and it would fall apart, in part because the offensive lines weren't what they were, and because just the defense was really, really disciplined. Michigan State, while I think they absolutely have better players at virtually every position than Iowa did the last few years when Iowa was able to eke into the Big Ten title game, Michigan State's not playing in the Big Ten West. If they were, I'd be saying, hey, they could, you get a break. You're in the Big Ten title game. You're not going to win against Ohio State or Oregon or whoever you're going to play, but you could probably get there. Michigan State does not have that luck. So it now is kind of, you're looking at how can they diversify? What can they do? And I think we've seen stuff, and we've talked about it, even in this podcast, about some of the things that they're able to do with the under center run game, where you're going to see them continue to advance, and it's going to be fine. It's not going to be linear. There's going to be ups, there's going to be downs, but I think it'll probably be fine.
One other bonus thing I just want to throw out for looking for an answer, and we have been getting answers week to week, is the pass protection. But of course, as they're just one injury away from me or you playing right guard, Chase. I want to see what it looks like with whoever it is, Dallas Fincher, Rakeem Johnson, whoever it is.
Yeah, right.
We'll see if I could survive even one game at right guard to continue doing this podcast. But whatever. We'll find out somewhere around week 5 or week 6, I'm sure. But it has looked good. It looked really strong to start the season against absolutely. FAU. It looked pretty decent against Maryland, and last week against Prairie View A&M, they only had 3 quarterback hurries last week. And of course, again, it's a terrible FCS team, and not to just be outright mean about it, but that is a really bad FCS team. Anytime you play a team, you only have 3 quarterback hurries. That is pretty impressive for the offensive line.
Yeah, 100%. So,
and just kind of
they were able to keep Childs pretty clean against Maryland. And
they were right.
There was that one sack, but you and I talked in the offseason, is Childs going to live through this year? And I think we can say now, yeah, probably. I mean, are things going to get ugly?
Hold on. Knock on wood. Yeah, let me just do that. Yeah, thanks. All right.
Things get ugly against Oregon, Ohio State. Yeah,
probably.
Sure. But they're going to do that to a lot of teams.
Right.
That's not a Michigan State issue. I think we can say pretty confidently through 3 games that pass pro's been coming in on the high end of expectations.
Mm-hmm.
So, definitely want to see if that can continue. Just because so much of pass pro is, okay, if you do have somebody who just, whoever was playing tackle for the Buccaneers on Sunday, okay, you just straight up cannot hang.
Yeah,
sure. Okay, sometimes you get that. You're not going to get that more than once or twice a year, unless you're in a truly, truly despicable kind of tackle situation, which I just don't think Michigan State is. So, I really would like to see that continue and see what you get there, especially if you're trying to scale this offense up with more straight dropbacks. Because if you're going to ask somebody to take a 5-step drop and read a defense, you're not going to do that if they're going to be flushed out of the pocket every single time. So.
Yep. I'm excited for this weekend's game, of course, because I get excited for every Saturday, but just how many answers we're going to get and get a better idea of, how can it work against Iowa, Michigan, Purdue? Indiana looks like they're going to be competing in the college football playoff here in a few months, Chase. Yeah. But so I'm excited to get a lot of clarity, especially in the trenches, because, as you know by now, that's where you win football games, it seems like.
100%. Yep. Yeah, absolutely. So I think we'll definitely come out of it with a lot of questions still. but also a lot of answers, and you're going to
Yeah.
need that because after that, 2 weeks after that, it gets real. You got Ohio State coming in, you're going to Oregon, you got Iowa, you got Michigan. You're about to find out what kind of team you have, and that's exciting. And also,
It is.
you do it 3-0, where you need 3 more wins to get to those 50 practices, and I think we both would be pretty stunned if they don't get there.
Okay.
I think I really think whether it's Iowa or Michigan, I really think we're going to get one of those games. I really do.
Gotcha. Do you promise? I need you to promise.
I'd put it at definitely over 50%. Like I really feel like
okay, let's go. Let's go.
Michigan, they're going to get one of those. It's based certainly on what we've seen, but also I just don't think that they're going to go winless in November. I really, really, really don't.
Or October, yeah.
Or October, yeah. And then you look at I hope they don't go winless in November because you look at
that'd be so sad. My God, that'd be horrible. Against Purdue? Oh, jeez.
November, it's like, what does Purdue do? They're going to sit back and play cover 1.
Yeah.
Take it from me, if you don't have dudes doing that, you can get picked apart. And if you're going to look at a Nick Marsh event game, that might be one of them, right?
I like that. Yeah, I like that. Call the shot early.
So just a lot of the kind of play action stuff. It's you've got Rutgers, which is definitely spicy from what they've been, but it's still.
I hate their quarterback though. Like I don't think their quarterback can complete a pass. Right.
If they had a quarterback, you can really talk about them because they're pretty well built. But you need that. It's important.
Right.
So we're gonna find out, but I'm continue to feel really positive about the direction of this whole thing. And we'll feel that way regardless of what happens on Saturday. So
vibes are so high right now. We're like, look at that. Chase promised a win against Michigan. That's how I heard it, at least. We're 3-0 right now. Our coach is still gainfully employed. Look how far we have come in the last year, guys. This is what happiness is right now. Oh my goodness, I haven't felt like this in a fallen years, Chase. This is great. Hey, folks, that's Chase Glasser. Does fantastic work over at Spartans Illustrated. And if you thought we were done this week, well, you are sorely mistaken. We do this 5 days a week here on Locked on Spartans. Tomorrow, Niraj Patel of BC Interruption. That's a Boston College blog. He will be hopping on the show, telling us all about his Golden Eagles, and then Maxwell Klitsky for the pregame show this Friday. But until then, hey, halfway done with the week, almost a kickoff. Let's enjoy ourselves. Love you all. Go Green.